My Emile offered to help during my postpartum recovery. Within days, she was calling my baby her child. She'd whisper, "She's mine more than yours anyway." When I brought it up, my husband said, "She's just attached." I stopped arguing. I started filming. When she tried to file for grandparents' rights after we went no contact, I handed the court 47 clips. The judge watched in silence, then ruled in mine. "Hey Reddit, posting this from a throwaway. I can't risk anyone I know seeing this tied to me. I need to tell you everything because it almost broke me. I grew up just outside Waco, Texas. A small town where everybody knows everybody's business. Family is a big deal here. Everyone helps each other. I thought that's how it would be when Rick and I had our baby. Rick and I met when we were barely out of high school. I was working the register at a local hardware store. He was doing deliveries. He was sweet, kind, a little shy. We dated for a couple years, saved every penny, and got married at 23. Neither of us had much, but we were determined to build a life. When we found out I was pregnant at 27, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. We cried. We laughed. We told our parents, and everyone was thrilled. At least, it seemed that way at first. Rick's mom, Jean, acted like she was thrilled too. But from the second we announced it, she got weird. She would show up uninvited, arms full of baby things she bought without asking. She had opinions about everything: what doctor I should use, what I should eat, how I should sleep. She even said once, "You know, you'll need a lot of help. I'll just move in after the birth." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. My labor didn't go as planned. I ended up needing an emergency C-section. I lost a lot of blood. I was out of it, in pain, barely able to sit up without help. Jean showed up at the hospital within an hour of Lily being born. I don't even know how she got into the recovery room so fast. She barely looked at me. She went straight to Lily, pulled her out of the bassinet without asking, and started crying and saying, "Grandma's got you now, sweetheart." I was too weak to argue. Rick thought it was sweet. I hated it, but I couldn't even lift my head without feeling like I'd pass out. When we got discharged 3 days later, Jean followed us home like a shadow. She didn't leave. She set up shop in our guest bedroom, told me to rest, and basically took over. The control begins the first night. She insisted Lily sleep in her room. "You need your sleep," she said. "I'll take the baby tonight." I was torn. I was exhausted, still bleeding, my stitches burning. I figured maybe one night would be okay. It was the worst mistake I ever made. From that night on, Jean acted like Lily was hers. If Lily cried, Jean would get to her before I could even stand up. If I wanted to hold her, Jean made excuses. "She just settled down. She's just about to nap. You need to heal. Sit down." I started feeling like a guest in my own house, in my own life. One morning about a week after we got home, I heard Jean in the guest room. I was walking past, and the door was slightly open. She was rocking Lily and whispering. I leaned closer and froze when I heard her. "She's mine. She's more mine than hers." I knew from the start. I felt sick. I pushed the door open and said, "What did you say?" Jean just smiled. "Oh, just singing lullabies." I went to Rick. I told him word for word what I heard. He shrugged. "She's just attached. It's normal. She loves Lily." I realized right then, if I waited for him to defend me, I'd be waiting forever. I stopped arguing, and I started recording. Documenting the nightmare from that day on, I kept my phone either recording or close enough to grab. I got footage of Jean saying things like, "You're just the oven. I'm the real mom. You can't even hold her right. She knows who she belongs to." I filmed her snatching Lily out of my arms when I tried to breastfeed, telling me to go lie down like I was a burden, mocking me for crying when I said I missed holding my own baby. Every night, I cried myself to sleep. I was supposed to be bonding with my newborn. Instead, I was battling for basic respect in my own house. I tried to tell Rick again and again. I showed him some videos. He got uncomfortable, said Jean was just trying to help. I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. The breaking point 5 weeks postpartum. I couldn't take it anymore. Jean was standing in the kitchen holding Lily and I asked to hold her. Jean laughed. She said, "Maybe when you're ready to be a real mother." Something snapped inside me. I said, "Give me my daughter. Now." Jean clutched Lily tighter and said, "She's better off with me." I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I calmly turned around, walked to my bedroom, packed a bag, grabbed Lily's car seat, and left. Rick wasn't even home. I drove straight to my parents' house and sobbed on the floor for 2 hours. My parents were horrified. They offered to let me stay as long as I needed. I sent Rick a text. "I'm safe. I'm at Mom and Dad's. We need to talk." Jean blew up both her phones that night. 20-30 calls in a row. We blocked her. We didn't go back. The legal attack, 3 weeks later, a letter came. Jean was suing us for grandparents' rights. She claimed she had been a primary caregiver, that cutting her off was damaging Lily, that I was unstable. She had pictures of her holding Lily, videos of her feeding her, all twisted to look like she had been raising Lily because I couldn't. We hired a lawyer immediately. He warned us it wouldn't be easy. In Texas, grandparents can sometimes win if they show an established relationship. Jean thought she had a case, but she didn't know what I had. 47 video clips of her saying Lily was hers, of her refusing to give her back, of her gaslighting me, of her treating me like nothing. The courtroom showdown court day came. Jean came dressed like she was going to church. Neat hair, pearls, fake tears. Her lawyer painted me as unstable. Said Jean had stepped in when needed. My hands were shaking. Then our lawyer stood up and said, "Your Honor, we have evidence." They played the clips one after another. Jean whispering, "She's mine." Jean calling me just the oven. Jean refusing to give Lily back. Jean laughing at me when I cried. The courtroom was dead silent. Jean's face turned redder and redder. Her lawyer's hands were shaking. The judge didn't say anything until the last clip finished playing. Then he leaned forward and said, "I've seen enough." The judge sat back in his chair, staring straight at Jean. "I have seen enough," he said again, this time slower, sharper. Jean opened her mouth like she wanted to speak. Her lawyer grabbed her arm to stop her. It didn't matter. The damage was done. The judge turned to me. "Mrs. R," he said, using my last name. "Do you want to speak?" I stood up. My knees were shaking so bad I had to hold onto the table. I said, "I just want my daughter safe. I just want to be her mother without being scared in my own home." The judge nodded. He ruled right there. Jean's petition for grandparents' rights was denied with prejudice. That meant she couldn't file again. It was over. Or at least, I thought it was. The aftermath was worse when we walked out of court. Jean was waiting by the parking lot. Her face was twisted with hate. "You think you've won?" she hissed at me. "You'll be begging me for help when he leaves you." Rick stepped between us. "Mom, go home." She pointed her finger right in my face and said, "You'll never be enough for her. You're nothing." Security came over and told her she had to leave. We drove home in silence. I held Lily's car seat tighter than ever. I thought it was the end of the nightmare, but I didn't know how deep her obsession ran. Strange things started happening about a week later. Rick went outside to find the tires on his truck slashed. We didn't have proof, but we both knew. A few days after that, a CPS worker showed up at our door. Someone had made an anonymous call claiming Lily was neglected and I was unstable. The worker was polite, but had to inspect everything. She checked Lily for bruises. She looked through our fridge and pantry. She even asked if Rick and I had gotten into fights. When she left, she said, "I'm sorry. It's obvious everything's fine. Some people abuse the system." I cried for hours after she left. Jean wasn't just trying to win in court anymore. She wanted to ruin me. Rick finally woke up seeing CPS at the door broke something in Rick. He finally stopped making excuses for his mother. He called her. I sat next to him while he put the call on speaker. "Mom," he said, voice shaking with anger. Stay away from us. Stay away from my wife. Stay away from Lily. If you so much as drive past our house again, I'll call the police. Jean screamed so loud I had to cover Lily's ears. She's my blood, she yelled. You're choosing that woman over your own mother. Rick hung up. We changed our numbers again. We installed cameras around the house. We bought a P.O. box so she couldn't find our real address if she tried to send anything. For a while, things went quiet. But she wasn't done yet. 2 months later, Rick's aunt, Jean's sister, showed up at my job. I work at a dentist's office. She came in pretending to have an appointment. When she saw me at the front desk, she walked up and said, loud enough for patients to hear, "You'll pay for what you did to your family. You think you're safe? You're not." The office manager threw her out and called the police. We filed a harassment report. That night, I sat on the couch holding Lily while Rick paced the living room. "This is never going to end, is it?" he said. I looked at him, and for the first time, I said it out loud. We might have to move. The decision to leaving wasn't easy. We had roots here. Friends, jobs, our whole history. But it wasn't safe anymore. Every time I went to the store, I was afraid she'd be there. Every time Lily cried at night, I was scared someone was outside. Rick found a transfer with his company in a city 2 hours away. It wasn't far, but it was enough to be a fresh start. We sold the house fast. Took a loss, but it was worth it. We didn't tell anyone except my parents where we were going. The night we left, I looked back at the house and felt this huge weight lift off my chest. We were finally free. Or so we thought. The move was rushed, but necessary. We rented a small 3-bedroom house in a quieter part of Temple, Texas. Not too big, but enough room to breathe again. Rick started his new job within a week. I stayed home with Lily trying to build a new routine. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could finally put the nightmare behind us. For a few months, it was peaceful. No strange calls. No slashed tires. No screaming outside our windows. We even started laughing again. Sleeping through the night. I let myself hope. Then one night in early October, there was a knock at the door. The unexpected visitor. It was about 8:30 p.m. Lily had just gone down. Rick was in the shower. I was folding laundry on the couch. At first, I thought it was a neighbor. I opened the door a crack. Standing there was a man I didn't recognize. Maybe mid-50s, scruffy, wearing a faded ball cap. He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "You Mrs. R?" he asked. I didn't answer. I tried to close the door, but he shoved his foot in. I screamed. Rick came running, dripping water everywhere. The man backed off, hands up. Hey, just delivering a message," he said. He tossed a folded piece of paper onto our porch and walked away into the dark. Rick chased him, but he was already gone. I grabbed the paper with shaking hands. It said in messy handwriting, "You can't hide her forever." We went to the police. We called 911 right away. An officer came, took our statements, looked at the note, and pulled the doorbell camera footage. The man had kept his head down, wearing a hat. No plates on the car that waited for him at the end of the street. They said they'd patrol more often, but there wasn't much else they could do without more. I felt like I was living in a nightmare all over again. We bought thicker locks, reinforced the doors. Rick even started sleeping on the couch with a baseball bat nearby. I knew it was Jean. Somehow, she had found us again. The final straw. About 2 weeks later, I went to take Lily to a park nearby. It was a sunny Saturday. Lots of families around. I felt safe for the first time in a while. I pushed Lily in her stroller, laughing when she kicked her little feet. And then I saw her. Jean. Standing by the swing sets. She wasn't even trying to hide. She was staring right at us, her face like stone. My heart stopped. I turned the stroller so fast I nearly tipped it over. I ran back to the car, threw Lily in, and locked the doors. Jean didn't chase me. She didn't have to. She had found us. We made a new plan when I got home. I showed Rick the video from my phone. I had filmed her standing there, just in case. He looked at me and said, "We have to finish this." We went back to the police. This time, with proof that Jean had crossed county lines to stalk us. They took it seriously. We filed for a restraining order. We added Rick's aunt's harassment to the report. We added the note from the strange man. The officers told us Jean might fight it, but at least this time, we had a paper trail. They served her at her house the next morning. Apparently, she screamed so loud the neighbors called the police again. But she didn't give up. Jean showed up to the first restraining order hearing with a new lawyer, one who specialized in family reunification cases. She told the judge that she just wanted grandma time with Lily, that she had no idea how we even moved, that we were keeping her granddaughter away out of spite. We showed the judge the footage from the park, the footage from our porch, the copy of the note. I could tell the judge wasn't buying her act. He said he needed a few days to review everything before making a ruling. Those few days were the longest of my life. Every time the doorbell rang, my heart stopped. Every time a car slowed down outside, I froze. The judge called us back 3 days later. It was a Friday. Hot, sticky, the kind of Texas day that makes you feel like the world is heavy on your shoulders. Rick took off work. My parents came to town to sit in the back of the courtroom with me. I needed them there. Jean showed up with her new lawyer, looking smug, like she thought she was about to win. I sat there shaking, holding a folder with every piece of proof we had. When the judge came in, he didn't even waste time. He said, "I have reviewed all the evidence. It is clear this is not a case of a loving grandmother being kept away unfairly. It is a case of harassment, obsession, and dangerous behavior." Jean's smile cracked. The judge granted a 5-year restraining order against Jean. Not just for me, not just for Rick, but for Lily too. Jean was not allowed within 500 feet of any of us. She couldn't contact us through anyone else either. Not by phone, letter, email, or a third party. If she did, she would be arrested immediately. And then he dropped the real bomb. Because Jean had crossed county lines, used third parties to threaten us, and was caught stalking at a park, the DA was pressing criminal charges against her. Stalking, harassment, child endangerment. It wasn't just a restraining order. It was going to be on her record. Forever. The fallout. Jean's world collapsed fast. She was arrested that afternoon. Mugshot and everything. Word spread through our old town like wildfire. She lost her standing at her church. Her friends stopped talking to her. Even Rick's aunt kept her distance after that. We heard from mutual connections that Jean tried to spin the story, said I had brainwashed Rick, that I was keeping her family away. Nobody believed her. She was known now as the woman who tried to steal her own granddaughter. The courts ordered her to undergo a psychological evaluation. She failed it. Badly. She wasn't just obsessed. She was dangerous. And, as for us, we stayed in Temple. We bought a small house at the edge of town with a big fence and security cameras. We went to counseling, me, Rick, even little Lily later on when she was old enough to understand some of it. It wasn't perfect. Rick had to live with the guilt of not standing up for me sooner. I had to live with the anger of trusting someone, anyone, when my gut told me not to. I wasn't perfect either. I had stayed silent too long at first. I had hoped things would just get better when I knew deep down they wouldn't. But we survived. We protected our daughter. And Jean? She spent 30 days in jail, 6 months probation, and will never be allowed near us again. We kept the videos, the court documents, everything. Just in case she ever tries anything again. Final thought, I don't forgive her. I don't forgive Rick's weakness back then either, even though I love him and we built it back. Sometimes the people who say they love you most are the ones you have to fight hardest to protect your family from. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. Love doesn't mean ownership. And sometimes the only way to win is to show the world exactly who they are. A new town, a new fear. We moved into a small rental house in a suburb outside Fort Worth. It wasn't fancy. It needed work. But it was ours. I thought we could breathe again. For a few weeks, it felt normal. We unpacked boxes. Rick started his new job. I took care of Lily. We took walks in the evenings. We even found a church with a nice daycare for when Lily got a little older. I let myself hope. Until one morning, when I went outside to grab the mail and found a card stuck in the doorframe. It wasn't mailed. Someone had put it there by hand. It had no name on the front. Inside, in big, shaky letters, it said, "You can run. You can't hide. Blood is thicker." I dropped it like it burned my fingers. How could she have found us? I freaked out. I called Rick at work. I called the police. An officer came out, took a report, but said unless there was proof who left it, there wasn't much they could do. Rick and I racked our brains trying to figure out how Jean could have tracked us down. We had been so careful. New phones. No social media. Only my parents knew where we were. Then it hit me. At Lily's last doctor's appointment, they had asked for our forwarding address for insurance purposes. Rick had filled it out. And Rick had made one mistake. He had listed Jean as his emergency contact a long time ago, back when things were normal, and never updated it. It didn't take much. A nosy receptionist. A mistake. Jean must have called around, pretending to be concerned. And now she knew. The escalation after the card, other things started happening. We found a dead bird left on our porch one morning. Another time, our backyard gate was open, even though we always kept it locked. Little things. Things that made it clear someone was trying to scare us. We bought more cameras. We added motion lights. We even looked into a restraining order, but without proof it was Jean, it was hard. The stress was killing me. I barely slept. I lost weight. I started double-checking Lily's window locks every night. Rick offered to quit his job and move again. I said no. I was tired of running. I wanted to fight. The mistake that changed everything one night, around 2 a.m, the Ring doorbell went off. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. Rick grabbed his phone and pulled up the video feed. At first, it was dark. Then a figure stepped into view. It wasn't Jean. It was Rick's aunt, the same one who had confronted me at work. She walked right up to the front door. She wasn't wearing a mask. She looked right into the camera. And she keyed our front door. Carved into the paint with a knife were the words, "Thief." We called the police immediately. Finally, we had something concrete. They arrested her 2 days later. She confessed under pressure and spilled everything. Jean had been paying her to harass us. The truth comes out under questioning. Rick's aunt told police that Jean had gone off the deep end. She believed she was Lily's rightful mother. She had promised her sister money, even a place to live, if she helped scare us enough to come back. The cops were disgusted. We pressed full charges. Rick's aunt ended up with probation and community service, plus a restraining order. But more importantly, now we had enough to get a permanent protective order against Jean. Not just for us, but for Lily too. Jean wasn't allowed to come within 500 feet of us, our house, Rick's work, or Lily's daycare. If she tried, she would be arrested on the spot. The last stand getting the protective order was a huge relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we had real power. But Jean didn't take it quietly. The day after the court granted the protective order, she tried one last time. She showed up at Rick's new job. She made a scene in the parking lot, screaming that Rick was a brainwashed coward and that Lily would find out the truth one day. Security called the police. She was arrested right there, in broad daylight. Rick stood in the lobby and watched as they put handcuffs on her. He didn't say a word. Neither did I. She had made her choice a long time ago. Facing my own mistakes after it all settled, Rick and I sat down one night, after Lily went to bed. We talked for hours. He cried. I cried. We finally faced it. This didn't happen overnight. We had let it build. I had brushed off the early red flags. Rick had made excuses for too long. We had both ignored our gut feelings because family is family. We promised each other right then, never again. No more putting politeness above safety. No more giving toxic people second, third, 10th chances. Family isn't about blood. It's about trust, respect, safety. Jean never deserved the title of family. Where things stand now, it's been almost a year. We still live in the same house. Lily just turned 2. She's happy, healthy, and full of life. Rick cut off all contact with anyone tied to Jean. So did I. We still have cameras up. We still stay careful. But mostly we live. We laugh. We go to the park. We have lazy Saturday mornings. We are free. Final words if you're reading this and you're doubting yourself, thinking maybe you're the crazy one because someone is gaslighting you. Listen to your gut. Film it. Write it down. Save it. Protect yourself. Because sometimes the biggest danger to your child isn't out there. It's inside your own front door. And when you realize it, you'll do whatever it takes to slam that door shut for good. I know I did. And I have zero regrets.